It was a chilly evening in the heart of the city. The streets were alive with the usual rush. Cars honking, people hurrying past, lost in their own world. Among them was a man in a crisp suit, his shoes shining under the streetlights, a symbol of success. He walked with confidence, his expensive watch glinting every time he moved his hand. His face was unreadable, the kind that had seen the world, built an empire, and had little time for distractions. Just a few steps ahead, sitting on the sidewalk, was a little boy. His clothes were worn out, too thin for the biting cold. He hugged himself for warmth, his small fingers trembling as he looked around at the passing crowd. People walked by without a second glance, as if he were invisible. But hunger doesn't let you stay invisible for long. His stomach growled, and his eyes darted toward a food cart nearby, where the smell of warm bread and steaming soup filled the air. Taking a deep breath, he stood up, his tiny feet moving hesitantly, his eyes locked onto the man in the suit. The kind of man he had seen in magazines or on TV, someone who had everything. The boy swallowed his fear and took a step forward. "Sir?" His voice was barely above a whisper. The man didn't stop. "Sir, please, just a plate of food." The boy tried again, his voice shaking. The millionaire paused. For a moment, he seemed annoyed, as if he had better things to do. He turned his head slightly, looking down at the child with a blank expression. People around them barely noticed the interaction. It was just another moment in a busy city. The boy shifted uncomfortably under the man's gaze. He had been ignored before, rejected before, but something about this moment felt different. There was a strange tension in the air, like something unexpected was about to happen. And then, the man reached into his pocket. The boy's heart pounded. Was he about to give him something? A few coins maybe, enough for a meal. But what happened next was something no one, least of all the boy, could have ever expected. The man's fingers brushed against the crisp bills inside his pocket. The boy's eyes widened, hope flickering in them like a candle in the wind. But instead of pulling out money, the man let out a small sigh and withdrew his hand empty. "Why should I give you food?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. The boy hesitated. No one had ever asked him that before. Usually people just ignored him or muttered something under their breath before walking away. His stomach ached, and he could feel the cold creeping deeper into his bones. "Because I'm hungry," the boy said softly. The millionaire studied him for a long moment, his sharp eyes taking in the frail figure in front of him. He wasn't heartless, far from it. He had built everything from nothing, clawing his way up from a past not so different from this boy's. But he had also learned that the world didn't reward weakness. "What's your name?" the man asked. The boy blinked in surprise. People rarely asked his name. "Liam, Liam," the man repeated, as if testing the weight of it. "And where are your parents?" Liam bit his lip. "Gone." The man didn't press further. He had seen enough in life to know what that meant. A silence stretched between them, thick with something unspoken. Then without a word, the man turned and started walking. Liam's heart sank. That was it. Another rejection. He should have known better than to hope. But then, the man stopped a few steps ahead and glanced over his shoulder. "Are you coming or not?" Liam's head shot up. For a second, he wasn't sure if he had imagined it. His feet moved before. His mind could catch up, hurrying after the stranger. They walked past crowded sidewalks, neon signs flickering above them. The scent of freshly baked bread and roasted meat filled the air, making Liam's stomach tighten with longing. He had no idea where they were going, but he didn't dare ask. Finally, they stopped outside a small diner, tucked between towering buildings. Warm light spilled from the windows, the hum of conversation and clinking dishes filling the air. The man pushed open the door, and Liam followed hesitantly. Inside, the smell of sizzling food was overwhelming. A waitress glanced up, her face lighting up in recognition when she saw the millionaire. "The usual Mr. Carter?" she asked. "Mr. Carter, so that was his name." Carter nodded, then motioned to Liam. "And whatever he wants." Liam's breath caught in his throat. He hadn't eaten a real meal in days. His fingers curled at his sides, unsure if this was real. "Go on," Carter said, his tone softer now. "Order." Liam swallowed hard and pointed at the menu hesitantly. "Just a burger and fries." The waitress smiled kindly. "Coming right up." As they sat at a small table, Carter leaned back in his chair, watching Liam closely. The boy's eyes kept darting around, as if afraid someone would come and throw him out. "You live on the streets?" Carter asked. Liam nodded, stuffing a fry into his mouth as soon as the plate arrived. Carter tapped his fingers on the table, deep in thought. "You ever tried to get a job?" Liam paused mid-bite. "I'm just a kid." Carter smirked. "So?" Liam frowned. "No one hires kids." Carter's gaze darkened. "That's not true. When I was your age, I worked every job I could find. Shined shoes, carried groceries, ran errands. Anything to survive." Liam stared at him, surprised. He had assumed Carter had always been rich. "You know what the hardest part is?" Carter continued. "It's not the hunger. It's not the cold. It's people looking at you like you don't belong." Liam nodded slowly. He understood that feeling too well. Carter exhaled, glancing outside at the busy streets. "You remind me of someone I used to know." Liam tilted his head. "Who?" Carter's jaw tightened, but he didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his wallet and pulled out $100 bill, sliding it across the table. Liam stared at it, confused. "This isn't for food," Carter said. "This is a test." Liam's fingers hovered over the bill. "A test?" Carter nodded. "I want to see what you do with it." Liam's heart pounded. He had never held so much money in his hands before. He could buy food for days. He could get warm clothes, maybe even a place to sleep. But something about Carter's gaze made him pause. "What if I fail?" Liam asked. Carter leaned forward, a small smile playing at his lips. "That's up to you." The air between them grew heavy, with something unspoken. This was no ordinary act of kindness. This was something more, and Liam had no idea what he had just gotten himself into. Liam hesitated, staring at the crisp bill in front of him. His fingers twitched, itching to grab it. $100. To someone like him, it was a fortune. But Carter's words echoed in his mind. "This is a test." Slowly, Liam picked it up, feeling the weight of something more than just money. He glanced up at Carter, searching his face for any hint of what he was supposed to do. But the man just leaned back, watching, waiting. Liam swallowed hard. His first instinct was to run, to take the money and find a place to eat, maybe even get a warm blanket for the night. But something about this moment made him stop. If this was a test, then what was the right answer? He gripped the bill tightly, his mind racing. Then, without a word, he stood up and walked toward the counter. Carter's eyes followed him, curiosity flickering across his face. Liam reached the cashier and pointed at the menu. "Can I get 2 more meals to go?" The woman nodded, punching in the order. Liam handed over the bill, his hands shaking slightly as he received the change. Carter remained silent as Liam returned to the table, setting the food bags down. The boy glanced at him nervously, before looking toward the window. Outside, sitting against a lamppost, was an old man wrapped in tattered blankets, his hands cupped together for warmth. Without hesitation, Liam grabbed the bags and rushed outside. He crouched beside the man, placing the food gently in front of him. "I thought, maybe you could use this," Liam said softly. The old man looked up, his tired eyes widening in surprise. A slow, grateful smile spread across his face. "Thank you, son," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. Liam gave a small nod, stepping back. He turned to see Carter standing in the doorway, arms crossed, a thoughtful expression on his face. Liam hesitated, unsure of what he had just done. Had he passed the test, or had he just thrown away his one chance at real help? Carter walked over, his polished shoes clicking against the pavement. He studied Liam for a long moment before nodding slightly. "You could have kept the money," Carter said. "Bought something for yourself, but you didn't." Liam shifted on his feet. I know what it's like to be hungry." A ghost of a smile touched Carter's lips. "So do I." Liam frowned. "You?" Carter exhaled, his eyes distant, as if remembering something long buried. "I wasn't always a millionaire, Liam. I was just a kid like you once. Broke, hungry, alone." He paused. "Someone helped me when I needed it most. And that moment changed everything." Liam's chest tightened. "What happened?" Carter's gaze softened. "I worked hard. I built my life from the ground up. But more importantly, I never forgot where I came from." He looked down at Liam. "That's why I stopped tonight, because I saw something in you." Liam didn't know what to say. The weight of the moment pressed down on him. Carter reached into his pocket again, but this time, he pulled out a small business card. He handed it to Liam. "Come by this address tomorrow," he said. "I can't promise you the world, but I can promise you a start." Liam stared at the card. It had an office address and Carter's name printed neatly in bold letters. His throat tightened. "Was this real? You mean a job?" Liam asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Carter nodded. "A chance. It's up to you what you do with it." Liam swallowed the lump in his throat. He looked down at the business card, then back at Carter. For the first time in a long time, hope didn't feel like a distant dream. Carter gave him a knowing look before turning to walk away. But just before he stepped into the night, he glanced back. "By the way," he said, "you passed the test." And with that, he disappeared into the city lights, leaving Liam standing there, holding a piece of paper that just might change his life.